already know.
WCMX HD3 Hartford.
93.7 FM Roadblock.
Gun show.
Home for Caribbean hits.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Patrick.
Awesome to have you here, man. Looking forward to a great conversation, of course. Thank you.
Same. I sent over Roslyn some notes, but hey, Roslyn.
Hey there. How's it going?
It's going well. Love the background.
Thank you.
A little blurred, I think. I don't know. Somehow my lighting is. I got to fix that. All right.
So I tried to answer some of the questions. I think the other ones we're going to have to freestyle.
And there's there's no pressure. I think on this program, it's all about diversity of perspective. So some things will wing and sometimes they're callers.
We're going to ambush you. We're going to ambush you, make sure that you're at a disadvantage. I'm kidding, man. We also have a sense of humor on this program.
Absolutely. There's no way to get through these times without a sense of humor, sir.
Absolutely. How you guys, my brother?
So,
first in the music.
I'm loving this. It's been a real treat today. I've been listening all morning, actually.
Well, we're so glad to have you.
CMX 93.7 HD3 Hartford. WCMX 93.7 FM HD3 Hartford.
I've got to get myself together. Yes, can't afford to let my faith go. Whenever just sun comes a shining. My sisters are all smiling. No one is dying. My people aren't crying. We are living in the love of the Father. Living in the house of the Almighty. Yeah, living in the love of the Father. Living in the house of the Almighty. Yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Of destruction will never be. Oh no, not unto a wise man who will see. Yet the fool thinks he knows it all. Here comes later, he stammers and falls. He goes down for a reason. Jack is giving him a beating to the foundation. He'll have to go down to the foundation. Chant him down to the foundation. He'll have to go down to the foundation. Whoa.
Let me say a pleasant good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Each and every one tuning in to Roadblock Radio, we say a pleasant good afternoon to you. And, of course, thanks for joining us. We're broadcasting on 3 frequencies, WCBS 101.1 FM, HD3 in New York and, of course, New Jersey. And we're in Connecticut at WZMX 93.7 FM, covering Hartford and in its environment. Also WMXJ 102.7 in South Florida. We say good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the Community Connection here live on Roadblock Radio, and of course we have host Patrick Reed and Roslyn standing by and all their guests. So I'm gonna go right away and turn it over. Let me say good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys doing this afternoon?
I'm doing just well, Garfield. I will speak for Roslyn. She looks brighter and bushy tail as well. And so
look like
I'm doing good, man. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well. Roslyn, you look like you have a lot of rest over the past couple of days, maybe?
Yes, I've been intentional about that, and I think spring is about to be sprung. So I've been doing some spring cleaning and lightening my load. So if that's showing up in my presence, that's why.
Wow. Garfield, she has been intentionally sleeping. How about that? I like it.
That's a good thing.
Let me say a pleasant good afternoon to each and everyone inside the Community Connection this afternoon, of course, across the entire globe, in particular in Connecticut and our sister station there, of course, 101.1 FM, in the New York tri-state area, as well as 102.7 WMXJ down in South Florida, from Jupiter all the way down to Key Largo and beyond on the World Wide Web. Thank you so very much for joining us each and every Sunday right here inside the Community Connection. We bring you information, little entertainment, some education as well. We call it edutainment. That's a phrase I coined myself, if you can believe it. But nonetheless, happy to be here. We talk it up each and every Sunday on matters of concern, issues of importance. And we're usually joined by my good friend and guest host, Jerome Moe. He's a little bit under the weather this afternoon, so I want to say a pleasant good afternoon to Jerome down in Atlanta. He brings us a southern perspective. We won't have that, but there's so much of it on the news. I don't think he's going to add much to the conversation, but we miss him just the same. Roslyn, I tell you, and Garfield, so much has been happening in the news this week. We're still in a full-blown war. In the United States and Iran are at it. We don't hear much about Venezuela anymore, but we know there's struggles there. Imagine, can you believe it? Imagine how quickly that disappeared from the scene. And not a word on the news about Venezuela. I wonder, the American people have so much to tend with. It's one thing after the other. And I don't know if we can take too much of this, but we are dealing with it. And, the world stage is really, it's in a frenzy right now. And we have to deal with it on a daily basis. And in the meantime, so many struggles on the homeland in the United States. There's a lot of unease. And obviously it's because of the war that's happening between the United States and Iran. So many lives are being lost. My heart goes out to those who have lost family members because of this tragedy. And I call it a tragedy because war is indeed a tragedy. And so we just have to pray that, the best will come out of this. As human beings, we sustain and we deal with so much on a daily basis. That's why we have to talk it out. That's why we have to talk about it. And rather than we have much to talk about, we still had, we have lingering effects of what's happening in the United States since before and since the previous election that we have to talk about. Voters' rights is still an issue that is of import in the United States leading up to the next midterm election that is forthcoming. So much is happening as you see people juxtaposition for all the issues that are going to be impactful, whether it's economic issues or political issues, you have health issues pertaining to what's happening in Congress. And we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to deal with. But we're poised and ready to go inside the Community Connection. Roslyn, take it for me. How are you feeling about this landscape that I've just put out there? Is it scary for you? Is this too scary for you? And I know you're up to the challenge.
Well, you know what it is? It's a lot to process and digest. I think something else happens before we've had an opportunity to fully absorb what had just occurred. So I think the news cycle, to your point about Venezuela and other matters, is moving, extraordinarily fast. And
Yeah.
I think the climate is chaotic, right? And some people seem to thrive in chaos, right? But many of us probably would prefer things were less chaotic.
Well, listen, in terms of chaos, there's economic chaos that's a fallout from this war. Garfield, I know you lost your 401k in the downturn of the stock market. We're here for you, brother. We're going to make sure that you're good to go.
I know I'm in good hands, Patrick. You're watching it for me.
Indeed. Yes, sir. I was watching the news this afternoon, and I saw President Volodymyr Zelensky on Fareed Zakaria talking about Ukraine's assistance in the war in Iran. It blew my mind. Ukraine is assisting, the allies around Iran, the United States allies around Iran with drone technology, drone interception technology, and all of that. Ukraine is doing that. Apparently, they have mastered that technology and are in a position to lend others some wares. And it's so ironic because I remember not long ago he came here trying to get support, and he was pretty much tossed out of the White House. And you got to give the guy a lot of credit, man. He's resilient, right? But you see how things have changed. Now they're lending a hand, and I suppose that lending of hand will reciprocate in some way, shape, or form when they need a hand coming up, right? We'll see how that works. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think that I'm like a lot of Americans right now that are really somewhat fatigued by foreign policy and endless wars that we seem to be engaged in. And I know that the foreign wars are going to be a major topic and decision factor in how people turn out in the upcoming midterm elections. So, my head is focused on a change in policy that would lead to more focus on domestic issues.
Yes, indeed. Well, we have that to talk about in the next hour as well. So, Roslyn, while you're on tap, let me have you introduce your guest. We have an awesome guest on the program this afternoon. I won't take up much more of the oxygen here. I'll let you go for it and bring him into the conversation.
Well, I think he's a great fit for this conversation because he's done so much work at the intersection of democracy, election integrity, and public policy. So our guest is Quinn Raymond. He is a policy strategist with Protect Democracy and the co-founder of Vote Shield. He has been working with voter data and election systems for more than 2 decades, collaborating with election officials, computer scientists, policy experts to help safeguard voter registration systems and absentee ballot data across the country. So I'm really happy to have him here today, especially to talk about the New York Civil Rights Act. So Quinn, I want to welcome you to the Community Connection. And before we, get really in our heads about policy, I think we would love to hear more about your remarkable background.
I wouldn't call it remarkable, but I got to say I'm really happy to be here. So first off, just Roslyn, Patrick, Garfield, everyone at Roadblock, thank you so much for having me on today and for creating this Civic Forum. Ooh. Oh, is that, I got a little echo for a second.
Yeah, there seems like there's some background noise.
I kind of like it.
I know, it kind of made it a little groovy for a second.
I was like, oh, this is a Caribbean radio station.
Yeah,
We're going to do that dub selector.
We're just riding the wave, right, Quinn?
Well, it's really good to be here. And thank you for creating this Civic Forum to discuss these kinds of issues that really matter to everyone's everyday lives. I feel like so much of the media right now is just designed to either distract or enrage. So it kind of feels like I'm in an oasis right now in the desert. So thank you for having me, and really excited to talk a little bit about some of these issues that are causing so much anxiety and strife in the world.
Well, what led you to the work that you're in? Like, what was that issue or that cause, or where does this passion come from?
So I think for me personally, I think, I had worked in partisan politics for a long time and, happy to scrap with the rest of them. And I'll say, I think at some point there was a turning point in my life where I realized that the problems that our country is facing, and frankly, the world is facing right now, sort of extend beyond partisan back and forth and who's up and who's down. Obviously, that's an important part of how policy gets made, but we're having deeper problems now, I think. And so working together in a cross-partisan fashion to figure out ways to ensure that elections are free and fair, that the person who has the most votes wins, and then thinking beyond that towards what our democracy could look like in the future. These are the things that excite us, and making sure that people's votes are counted, and that the result really reflects the winner. These are the things that really resonated with me, and that extends beyond donkeys and elephants.
Right. And is that some of the ethos behind Protect Democracy? Tell us more about that organization specifically and what the organizational focus is.
Yeah, so Protect Democracy was founded in 2017, and we're a nonpartisan organization committed to preventing the United States from declining into a more authoritarian form of government. And of course, this is not a problem that's specific to our country. This is something that we've seen this century across the world. For all of human history, in fact, there's always been would-be tyrants. And I think one of the things that's really interesting to me is that across time and space, wherever they are, whether it's Caesar or Hitler or Mao or Papa Doc or someone closer to home, you're going to find that they use the same consistent set of tactics. So I'm going to give you 7 things that an authoritarian tactic that they will use, that they're doing, you can identify them, I think, pretty quickly and probably map them to news in the world. But maybe as a thought exercise, I'm going to give you these 7 and you can fill in the blanks. So number 1 is politicizing independent institutions, taking something that is supposed to be nonpartisan or objective, some basic government service, and turning it into another political weapon. Number 2 is stoking violence. Number 3 is spreading disinformation. Number 4 are executive power grabs. Number 5 is quashing dissent. Number 6 is corrupting elections, and that can take the form of actually trying to change the outcome. It can also take the form of spreading disinformation about elections. And finally, number 7 is delegitimizing communities, which is a very long-winded way of saying attacking minorities. If you're a strong man or a would-be strong man, you need someone for the populace to fear, and you need a bad guy, you need a heel, and whether or not that is based in reality or it's simply a narrative or a myth you're creating, you need someone like that so that people feel unsafe and they give you more power. So these are the things that we are looking for in current events, and these are the things that we're trying to fight with our work state by state.
Very powerful. I think on this program, we put so much emphasis behind civic engagement and voter participation, and really educating people and informing and reminding them that they have the power, right, to determine who represents them at various levels of government. So when we consider some of the concerns around security of those institutions that, regulate elections, what are some common misconceptions?
Where do we even begin? Oh boy, there's so many misconceptions out there about how elections in our country works. And it's helpful to always go back to the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution was flawed. It remains flawed. It was written by flawed men. But there are some good ideas in it. There is this idea of the balance of power, right? No one branch should have all of that power. There is this idea of ensuring that states have some of their own powers, and that has certainly been abused in the past. But, I think one of the clearest parts of the Constitution is that states run elections, not the federal government. So if anyone suggests that the federal government is going to overtake elections, that is not based in the U.S. Constitution and the law of the land. The federal government does have the right to regulate elections. And there are some very good federal laws that have been passed over the decades to help regulate elections and ensure the rights of voters. So the Voting Rights Act, the National Voter Registration Act, the Help America Vote Act, all of these are federal laws that impact how we cast our votes and how those votes are counted. And they're really important. But, critically, all of those laws are laws that are passed by Congress and found constitutional by the Supreme Court. The executive has no role in elections, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
Awesome,
Okay.
awesome. Well, I want you to hold on to some of those thoughts. Patrick, were you going to say something?
Yeah, before we go to the break, Quinn, because this conversation is just starting, I'm glad to hear you lay the foundation in terms of, what are the markers that one should look for, in a government that is getting a little too much authoritarian. I remember my Development of Western Civilization class in college, and my professor, I love the guy because he laid it out so nicely. And he talked about the brown shirts of Italy and the black shirts of Germany prior to those, very, very autocratic regimes. And I was just sitting, and I think I've said it in this program before, I'm seeing some of the same things he talked about, the very same things, and the same conversations happening. And so we'll talk more about this, the matter. There's so much you put on the table to talk about, but the upcoming election, that the midterm election, portends a lot of interesting circumstances. And we'll chat with that when we come back. Ralph, you take it out with a little music, and we'll come back in the conversation with Quinn Raymond and, of course, Roslyn Smith. Our community connection continues. We're going to come.
Indeed. Just about 25 minutes after the hour, 2 o'clock, here inside Roadblock Radio. We're inside the Community Connection. Of course, Patrick Reed, Roslyn, and of course, we have our guest, Quinn Raymond, who is on board. And we'll take a couple more questions from him when we come back after the break. Stand by, we jump into our music here from Freddie Ever, Reddy McGregor. If you want me. We got you covered 25 minutes after the hour.
You say that we've been here before, and now you wanna close the door. But I promise love won't hurt no more. Baby, you should have stayed here in my life. Oh, sugar, I got to know for jealousy and pain. Insecurities, oh yeah. Now, lady, it's just you and me again. Woman, won't you stay here in my life, baby?
WZMX 93.7 HD3 Hartford.
Baby, baby, oh lady, you should stay, you should stay. You say that we've been here before, and now you wanna close the door. But I promise love won't hurt no more. Baby, you should have stayed here in my life. Oh, sugar, I got to know for jealousy and pain, and my insecurities. Now, lady, it's just you and me again. Woman, won't you stay here in my life? Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, yeah. If we're having problems, why don't you tell me so that we can solve them and move on? I'm playing games, and everything remains the you should have stayed here in my life. Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, girl. If we're having problems, why don't you tell me so that we can solve them and move on, girl? And tell me, let's solve it together. Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, girl.
Roadblock Radio, WCBS 101.1 FM HD3.
You tell me.
Music there from Freddie Eva, Reddy McGregor. It's time now to take a break, a word from our sponsors, and we get right back to our conversation here inside the Community Connection. Stand by.
Baby, if you need me, let me know, girl. Baby, 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 oh lady, you should stay. You say that we've been here before, and now you wanna close the door. But I promise love won't hurt no more. Baby, you should have stayed here in my life. Oh, sugar, I've got to know for jealousy and pain and my insecurities. Oh, yeah. Now, lady, it's just you and me again. Woman, won't you stay here in my life? Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, yeah. If we're having problems, why don't you tell me so that we can solve them and move on? Well, I know you think that I'm a playing games, and everything remains the same. For all your pain, I still take the blame. Lady, you should have stayed here in my life. Oh well, mistakes I made, they were more than few. So I know that this must be hard for you, yeah. I trust that we will one day make it through. Lady, you should have stayed here in my life. Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, girl. If we're having problems, why don't you tell me so that we can solve them and move on, girl? And tell me, let's solve it together. Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know, girl. If we're having problems, why don't you tell me so that we can solve them and move on, yeah. Baby, if you want me, why don't you tell me? Baby, if you need me, let me know,
93.7 HD3 Hartford.
Do you know social living is the best? 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 Takes behavior to get along.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Lots of behavior to get along. Do you really know?
Music there from the Conscious One, Burning Spear. 2:36 on the clock, 24 minutes to the hour. Right now, 45 degrees on the outside, looking nice for us in this area, the tri-state area. Florida right now, 77 with some thunderstorm. Locally, heavy downpour coming your way. Temperatures will get up to 79 degrees. And so let's join our panelists right here inside Roadblock Radio. We're inside the Community Connection on this lovely, well, it's kind of overcast, but nevertheless, the moment you wake up in the morning and you have all your faculties together, I would say it's a wonderful day. Wouldn't you say that, Patrick?
That's easy for you to say, Garfield. Yeah. I want sunshine, man. I want sunshine. Okay. I'm heading to Jamaica on the end of the week, and then from Jamaica heading over to Panama. I'm hoping to absorb a lot of sea, a lot of sunshine, and so don't prep me this way. Don't start me out the right way. Hey, Garfield, when I asked you for some conscious revolutionary music, man, I didn't know you were going to draw for my hero, the great Burning Spear.
Yes.
But glad that you did, man. There's so much in our music that brings forth a message that we need to really, resonate and think about. And this afternoon we have, Quinn Raymond from Vote Shield, who's on the program with us. I hope I got that right. And Roslyn was good to bring him into the program to talk about so many important things that we need to know as immigrants in this country. Oftentimes, we don't rally as we should, but certainly can outline some of the reasons why we definitely should rally as we live in this country and active participants in this country. We as immigrants have, especially right now, have so much to be concerned about. So Roslyn, take it away and let's continue this great conversation with Quinn this afternoon inside the Community Connection.
Absolutely. And so, Quinn, I'm so glad that you're here. How have you been enjoying the roots and culture that you've been getting on the program today?
It's awesome. I grew up on Lower East Side. I am especially someone who loves music and loves music across all different genres. And so this has been an absolute treat. Thank you.
Absolutely. And when we think about the Caribbean diaspora, to Patrick's point, we reach a lot of them across several markets on this network. So when you think about why election integrity and voter participation is important to immigrant and first and second generation communities, what comes to mind?
Well, I think the stakes are high, right? And, in a lot of different dimensions, right? It's like, if the government can't meet people's basic needs, that's a problem, right? If housing is too costly, if there are other things that are, creating pressures on people, obviously that is something that directly connects. But then also, as we were talking about before the break, I think especially in this moment, immigrant communities from all over the world here in the U.S. have been unfairly targeted and the subject of lies and violence, kidnapping. I think, there was for a moment a very bright focus on Minnesota, but people are still getting kidnapped all over New York. And it's not as visible now as it was before, but that's simply because it's bad PR. This campaign has not ameliorated. And so, we talk a lot and we think a lot about elections and making sure that elections are free and fair, that no one is improperly removed from the voter rolls if they're a legitimate voter. There are certainly a lot of lies around non-citizen voting. The data shows us that it is all but non-existent. Even the data coming from people who are making accusations about non-citizen voting, their data, I would say there's a paucity of examples. And so, we also are trying to think a lot about our civil rights, right? So voting is important. That's a civil right. But there's a lot of other rights, too, that the Constitution guarantees everyone who lives in the United States, citizen or not. So, because the federal government has been intruding so much into our communities, one of the things we need to do is have a way to push back. And there's a really brilliant state senator from Brooklyn, native son of Brooklyn, of Costa Rican descent. His name is Senator Zellner Myrie. He's very visionary, I would say, in his legal thinking and analysis. And he proposed a bill called the New York Civil Rights Act. And the New York Civil Rights Act is going to be an incredibly useful tool to push back on unconstitutional attacks on our neighbors. So what this act does is it closes a loophole that currently allows federal officers to break the law with impunity. So there's this imbalance in how federal and state and local officials are held accountable under the Constitution. So depending on what badge you have determines whether or not you will face consequences if you shoot someone. So federal law allows people to sue state and local officials for damages. There's no equivalent federal law that exists for suing federal officials. That means that Americans at present cannot hold a federal officer legally accountable for violating their constitutional rights. So our rights have no meaning, right, if government agents can violate them without consequences. So victims, from our point of view, should be able to sue for damages or restitution when their rights are violated. This is not just about getting compensation or some, quantum of justice when you've been harmed. This is also a way of preventing bad behavior in the future. So we're trying to create some stronger disincentives, especially as it gets warmer. You're going to see more people on the streets, more people protesting. And I think we're going to see a lot of conflict coming out of that. So this law basically will give New Yorkers a private right of action. They'll be able to sue a federal officer if their rights are harmed. The governor has been very, I think, vocal in her support of this idea. I think that Senator Myrie and his sponsor in the Assembly, Romero, have been incredibly good at getting this message out and crafting a law that will survive the Supreme Court, frankly, which is a huge part of all of this. Is you can write the coolest bill in the world, but if it gets struck down by the justices, then you have done nothing. So they've done a really good job of writing this law in a way that is smart and will actually be resilient and survive the challenges that are coming.
Wow, that is excellent perspective. And we can say confidently that many people have had their constitutional rights violated throughout the duration of, the current administration's immigration policies. And I'm also of the opinion that despite who is the figurehead at the top of that organization, I don't think the policies or the tactics are going to change. So whether it was, Miss Kristi Noem or someone else, it's going to be the same tactics. And I wouldn't be surprised if these issues resurface to the forefront as we get closer to some of the primary elections that are happening all over the country. So I want to help people who may not understand how a law like this intersects with things that we hear in mainstream media about elections being federalized, right? How do these two things intersect, and what do we need to keep in mind in terms of where to put our focus? Because we're in a climate now where it's hard to focus on the solution that's going to move us forward because everything is so chaotic.
And before you answer that, let me just add on top of that, given what is happening in Congress right now, in terms of the lack of agreement on passing the laws that would curtail ICE. Would curtail ICE in terms of having them take their masks off and stuff. Those kind of issues, which are having tremendous overall impact on the economy because those items are tied to economic matters. How does it tie in?
All right, let me see if I can do this. It's a lot of threads. We're gonna weave a carpet.
That's a big one. All right.
Okay, so I think it's good to take a step back when you're seeing all of this, and it is a circus every day, and there's a lot of talk. And I think one thing that's helpful, two things that are helpful as we're navigating these insane news cycles. The first one is think about for any given action that occurs or any given statement that occurs, is this about a hard power grab? Is this going to actually make this person more powerful and get them closer to being the autocrat they want to be? Or alternatively, is this about telling a story, a narrative? Is this part of a broader story that they're telling that is a narrative that is trying to bring people along into their movement? And it's really helpful once you start sort of classifying anything that happens in one of those buckets. Is this a hard power grab, or is this a story that is here to gain support, right? And so a lot of the stories that were told around immigrants are really about a story, right? You want to have a story, you want people to feel unsafe. A lot of the stories about election integrity, right? Or about a narrative, right? This idea that someone is coming and stealing something from you resonates powerfully in people. And so like anytime any of these things happen, is this a hard power grab, like when they tried to overturn a lawful election in North Carolina last year? Or is this really about sort of the ongoing soap opera? And in terms of the elections stuff thus far this year, for now, it's a lot of caveats, it's a story. It is about protecting a narcissist's belief that they were robbed in 2020. That's a story. That's not the same as a hard power grab. The hard power grab, to look for the warning signs, if you see additional actions in toss-up counties, in areas where there's a very close election, that is something to watch out for. That is probably building up the groundwork for a hard power grab. I would be very concerned when and if those come up. And then, of course, there's like legislation in Congress too, right? So there was a SAVE Act that's been proposed repeatedly, which is not a very well-crafted piece of election policy. And I say that in a nonpartisan way, right? Like I'm not taking either side of the equation. I'm just telling you this is like not very well thought out. And any state that has tried to do this in the past has had a disastrous set of consequences, often not impacting the people they originally targeted. So to me, the greatest irony in all of this is that the people who are most likely to have their documents with them in an envelope in any given time are recently naturalized citizens. They will be able to prove their citizenship in a heartbeat. There's a lot of other native-born Americans who don't necessarily have a birth certificate, especially if you grew up in a small rural area. And so the unintended consequences of those kinds of national bills is insane. But also those national bills were not proposed in good faith because they're really more about a story. There is no hard power grab for the SAVE Act because it's not going to make it through the Senate. I'm pretty sure it's not going to make it through the Senate. Don't quote me on that, but I'm 99% sure it's not going to make it through the Senate. So then the question is like, well, why would you propose a law if you know it's doomed to fail? That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't if you're trying to get power. It does if you're trying to tell a story. And if the story you've been telling for years and years now is that Black and brown people are going to steal your vote, and then you try to like write a law that like prevents that from happening, and the opposition blocks it, it's a damn good story, and it riles up the base.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me ask you this. Your organization, focus on protecting the rights of individuals. We hear a lot about First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, or in particular Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights being in jeopardy of violation. And if those rights are in jeopardy for the average American, what does it say about the immigrant American? Are those rights in jeopardy? Are we to be concerned? Are really concerned about our rights?
Yes. And I think that was true before this particular regime, and I think it will be true after. And so we're in the midst of an immediate conflict, and our country is in great peril, I would say. And also, there are things about this country that have never quite worked right. And there are aspects to this democracy that we always knew needed improvement. And so I think there is in all of this crisis some opportunities. And passing a law that protects the rights of New Yorkers will be useful beyond the moment we're in. It will be useful for our grandchildren, because that was never guaranteed. And there will be future tyrants who come along. And so we should think about what that looks like long term. And I'll say, these bills are popping up all over the country. So for your listeners who are in New Jersey, there's a similar bill in New Jersey. I can't actually say the name of that bill out loud because I want to respect the FCC. But I will say that they're working on this in New Jersey. They're working on it in Connecticut. They're working on it in California. As far as I know, there's no bill in Florida and probably no path to a law in Florida around this. But state by state, that is where the action is now. And so for people who are anxious and stressed, get involved in state politics, in local government, engage with your governor, engage with your assembly member, your senator, whomever, and think about those state policies, because that's where the opportunities are to move our democracy forward right now.
Quinn, this has been an incredible dialogue, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that we have you on this program to talk about pending legislation. How can our listeners stay in touch with you or learn more about Protect Democracy?
Thank you so much, Roslyn, and would be thrilled to return. I promise I'll try to be a little less long-winded next time, but I get very excited about these topics. So a couple of things. So one is we have a blog. You can subscribe to our blog, our Substack. It's called ifyoucankeepit.org. So ifyoucankeepit.org will give you the most up-to-date information on this broader struggle to protect democracy in our country. So that is a thing to do. You can also Google how to protect democracy, and you're going to get a guide with 29 actions that you can do today. One of them is to subscribe to and support local media. That is actually, after subscribing to our newsletter, the next one is please support local media, because that is actually critical to democracy. I'd also say if you're a talented person and you really care about these issues of democracy, come work for us. If you go to our website, protectdemocracy.org, and you look at careers, you'll see that there are opportunities for an accounting associate, a chief administrative officer, an editorial specialist, an engineering manager, and freelance designers. So if you have any of those skills, definitely encourage your listeners to reach out and apply.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Quinn. Have a good one.
Quinn, it's been a good conversation, and I'm really happy to have you inside the Connection. And you're welcome to come back, for sure.
I'd be honored. Thank you so much,
All right.
Patrick.
Have
And
a
thank
great
you,
day.
Garfield.
Blessings.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, there you have it, Roslyn. What an awesome. We're going to keep you, Roslyn.
I'm earning my keep, Patrick. Is that
Oh, gosh,
is that what you're
man.
saying?
You have multiplied your time. So wonderful. Quinn Raymond was with us and talk about his work with Vote Shield. And thanks to Roslyn, he gave us some fantastic information. And I encourage everyone listening to get engaged and stay engaged. That's what we hope for. That's how we connect, right, Roslyn? That's what we hope for inside the community, that we can move one person, at least one person, to action, huh?
Absolutely. And I think that we have, and I think that the impact of this program in particular is still unfolding, right? As we continue to grow, as we continue to expand the conversation and bring diverse voices into the mix. I'm just so grateful that we have the privilege of being a part of this moment, and because I think it is a privilege to be a part of media and to be able to frame the conversation.
Yeah, especially in our community, we are silent for the most part. Well, we're getting a little more mouthy, we're getting a little more out there, with people like Roslyn Smith and others like her, we're talking more, and it's important because we have so much to say. We have important things to say. And when we come to this country as immigrants, we have to immerse ourselves into the process, understand how this thing works, right? Get civically engaged and make sure that our voices are heard. And that is what I wish that the community connection can impart to everyone. Roslyn, you have another guest coming up. We'll take her on top of that when she comes. We'll go ahead and give her a pre-introduction now.
Absolutely. So our next guest brings an interesting perspective. I know, Lord have mercy, brings an interesting perspective on public service, policy, and a personal journey behind leadership. Her name is Anika Omphroy, and she used to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. So We're happy to have her on the program and looking forward to hearing from her.
All right. Welcome, Anika, when you come in, and we'll chat it up. Garfield, you have any Marley on tap there, man? Or you do have more burning spear or some radical tosh going on? Give me something.
Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh.
All right. We're going to talk.
Folks, if you're just joining us, we're inside the Community Connection here on Roadblock Radio. We'll start at 2 o'clock and until 4 o'clock, we have host Patrick Reed and, of course, co-host Roslyn Smith. And all their guests are joining us right here live on Roadblock Radio. Just about 4 minutes to break time, and then when we come back, we'll have another guest on the program. So we're live on WCBS 101.1 FM HD3, WMXJ 102.7 FM HD3 in South Florida. Let me take time to big up all the people down in South Florida tuning in. I know they got it locked each and every Sunday afternoon here on Roadblock Radio. Connecticut, you're coming in live at WZMX 93.7 FM, and so we jump into a Peter Tosh. A request by Patrick. Patrick seems to love Peter Tosh and Bob Marley and Burning Spear and all these
They're my guys, man. They're my guys, man.
So I got to drop it. Patrick. Hang on.
All right.
We'll come back after the break. Stand by. Roadblock Radio. Good afternoon.
Everyone is crying out for peace, yes. None is crying out for justice. Everyone is crying out for peace, yes. None is crying out for justice. I don't want no peace. I need equal rights and justice. I need equal rights and justice. I need equal rights and justice. Got to get it. Equal rights and justice. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Followers of Jesus, everybody wants to go up to heaven, but none of them want to die. I don't want no peace. I might need equal rights and justice. I've got to get it. Equal rights and justice. I really need it. Equal rights and justice. Just give me my share. Equal rights and justice. What is due to Caesar? You better give it on to Caesar. And what belongs to I and I? You better give it up to I. 'Cause I don't want no peace. heading for the top. But tell me, how far is it from the bottom? Nobody knows, but everybody fighting to reach the top. How far is it from the bottom? I don't want no equal rights and justice. I need equal rights and justice. I've got to get equal rights and justice. I really need it. Equal rights and justice. Everyone is talking about crime. Tell me, who are the criminals? I said everybody's talking about crime. Tell me, who are the criminals? I really don't see them. I don't want no peace. I need equal rights and justice. We got to get equal rights and justice. And there be no crime. Equal rights and justice. There be no criminals. Equal rights and justice. Everyone is fighting for equal rights and justice. Palestinians fighting for equal rights and justice. Down in Angola, equal rights and justice.
Roadblock, WCMX 93.7 FM HD3 Hartford. Roadblock Radio.
1011 HD3 New York Tri-State. 1027 HD3 South Florida. in HD3.
Roadblock, blazing Caribbean vibes.
Wake up and live your. Wake up and live. Wake up and live now. Wake up and live. Life is one big road with lots of signs. So when you're riding through the ruts, don't you complicate your mind. Flee from hate, mischief and jealousy. Don't bury your thought, put your vision to reality. Yeah. All together now.
Wake up and live. Wake up and live. All right, Marley's Hot on the Box, Roadblock Radio. Welcome back. 6 minutes after 3 o'clock. And of course, we're inside the Community Connection each and every Sunday from 2 o'clock until 4. Host Patrick Reed and co-host Roslyn is standing by, and of course, their guests. So I got to kick it back to Patrick, of course, to begin the final hour.
Garfield, man, listen, keep rocking in the background there. You know, when we speak, we need a little Marley to keep it rolling. You know, when you come inside the Community Connection party, you know, you gotta be ready to groove.
Put on your dancing shoes, yeah.
That's right, man. Marley brings us set the right tone for us, of course. Yeah, and you know, Roslyn, I'm just thinking, man, we had a conversation with Quinn a few moments ago, and Quinn is all about protecting voter rights and voting integrity and voting and all that. And he just brought back to mind that, you know, when I ran for city council in the city of East Orange, New Jersey, some of my main concern were, is this election going to be fair? You know, keep in mind, it's a total Democratic constituency, right? But I wanted to know, is it going to be fair, especially as an immigrant getting into the political arena? It's something that I'm concerned about all the time. And I wonder why we don't see a lot of us in there, is that maybe we don't understand the environment, how to maneuver it. So it kind of scares us and we don't jump in as we should. You know, we come from countries where politics is a big deal. You know, if you come from Jamaica, man, election time, we're all immersed. When we come to the United States, many immigrants from Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, wherever you may come from in the Caribbean, seem to not step up as much as we should. But of course, we have those who do. And we're happy this evening. I'm going to hand it over to you, Roslyn, to talk about and introduce one such person.
Yes, we are very fortunate to have Miss Anika Omphroy with us today, who
welcome, Anika.
Welcome to the program. So she is based in South Florida, and she used to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. And my understanding is that her district largely covered Broward County, right? And during her time in the legislature, she worked on a lot of different issues, including early childhood education, consumer protection, public health and transparency, you know, matters concerning the justice system. So she has since left office, but she remains very civically engaged and is working on a memoir titled Broken Branches, where she's going to be reflecting a lot about her experience in a politically engaged Caribbean American family. So, Anika, welcome. How are you?
I'm so grateful to be here on the Community Connection, and I'm Roadblock Radio. Nice to see you in person and to speak to you in person, Roslyn and Patrick. I look forward to having a deeper conversation about how we interact as Caribbean Americans in this country in the political sphere. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
Of course. And I know that you've written a lot about growing up in a Caribbean American family. So, you know, what early experiences shaped your interest in public service or civic engagement? Help us connect the dots.
So I want to say that I come from a family of public service. So my grand aunt actually redid the midwifery system in Jamaica, and was actually got an Order of Distinction the year I was born, 1978. Her name was Gwendolyn Omphroy Spencer. And so, I had some really big shoes to fill, and I watched as the women and the men in my family stepped in to do what was best for their home country. At the time, it was Jamaica. My parents migrated to Brooklyn, New York as teenagers. So you had a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old dropped in Brooklyn, and they had to figure it out. New York City, I am grateful that if I couldn't be born in the Caribbean, New York City worked out just fine. Because it is definitely, what I would call a convergence of all of the islands, and also that family-oriented vibe, that stick together, that walk up the street. But then you also saw other communities and cultures. So I got to see the Hasidic Jews walking to synagogue on a Saturday. And, being in Brooklyn was my grandparents lived about 2 blocks away from where Shirley Chisholm resided. So I would walk past her home. As a kid, I don't realize the impact of that. But as an adult, when I look back, I'm like, oh, I was walking near greatness all day long and had no clue. So thank you again for giving me an opportunity to speak about civic engagement. My aunt then ran for office when I was a senior in high school. The first time she ran, I was a junior, and she lost by 2 votes. The 2 votes could have come directly from our family. My mom at the time wasn't a citizen. My father at the time wasn't a citizen. When she ran for election the next time, she actually won. And she has been in elected office for 30 consecutive years. Her name is Hazel Rogers. And she's a county commissioner in Broward County, Florida. And you would be proud to know that the district I represented was considered the Caribbean American district of the state of Florida. And she served in that position. I served in that position. And the new state representative who serves in that position is also Caribbean American. She was born in Jamaica. And so we have, because of my aunt, Commissioner Hazel Rogers, we have not only built a very large and vibrant Caribbean American elected officials group in Broward County, Florida, we have continued to make sure that the next generation understands what's taking place and holding their hands along the way, which was one of the missions that I was on. Because when I ran for office, interestingly enough, my aunt didn't want me to run for office. I'm a bit of a renegade. So, we dodged, we slide, and we moved our way through. But I made sure when I left office that the person that was coming in after me had someone to help them along the way. I told her that she had 24-hour contact with me for a year after taking office. She could call me anytime, morning, noon, or night, to ask me any questions that she should have about being in office and what to do and how to navigate. But before she got into office, I took her to the Capitol. She sat in committee meetings. She sat in meetings with me with the different chairs of the different committees, because I wanted her to understand what the process looks like, because you can't be frightened if you see it. And so bringing her in, Patrick, you said, what does this process look like and how do they let us through? Part of the process is, once we get through, is to hold the hand of the next person coming through until they no longer need to hold it. So I gave her a year, and she did call at 3 a.m. and she did call at 12 o'clock in the morning. And I did answer. And then I made it a point not to stand in her way. I did not go anywhere near the state legislature until she had been in the seat for an entire year, except for one call. She called me because she needed help with appropriations, and me and the appropriations chair were dear friends. I flew in, went straight to the appropriations chair office, explained why my community needed this funding, and she got it the next day. But I never walked in and, oh, I'm here, or walking through the place as if I was still the rep or still the member. I don't think anyone else saw me but the chair. And that was exactly how I wanted it to be. So understanding how to help the next move in, and then also understanding our role is to play in the background until it's time to step forward again. Sorry.
That is extremely powerful. There's a broader conversation happening right now in the Democratic Party about a lack of succession planning. So what you're speaking to, I think, is putting emphasis on why we need succession planning, right? Mm-hmm. And what can we do to help facilitate more of that?
I think part of the conversation is understanding that, power is a very interesting thing. Being able to pick up the phone and call, as you all know, being in radio, being in TV, being in entertainment, you have access to tons of people. And it's the same thing in politics. You can pick up your phone and get a Buju Banton on the line. You can also pick up the phone and get a commissioner or a council person or a representative on the line. What happens sometimes, I believe, is that we don't know how to let go. But I had a really amazing grandmother. And my grandmother told me, you learn, you master, you teach, and you move out the way. So I was never thinking that I would be in this spot forever. And so in my mind, I knew that I had to make sure that if anything should happen to me, there was someone who would not leave my community out in the bushes or out in the cold. So we have to get a little bit, as elected officials or former elected officials, we have to get a little bit out of our own way and understand that we must succession plan. Because even in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, life is not promised. If you don't succession plan, the people that you so dearly love do not have a voice if something should happen to you. And I think that is the thing. If we think about community first, we will succession plan. And the problem is that we think that we're the only ones who can do this. I mean, ego before community, you know? It's not that way, though. We're not the only ones that can do that. There are people who are called for a certain time, and we must make sure that they're prepared for their time. They're not going to do it like we do it. They're not going to speak it like we speak it. But if they love our community, they will figure it out. And we wait for the call, and we wait for the questions. And if we see them moving wrong, we don't, you know, when the emperor had no clothes, everybody sat there and watched the emperor walk around without no clothes. If we see them with no clothes, we get them a robe. But we don't have to do it by blasting them. We can do it by merely showing up with the robe, placing it on them, and exiting the building. Because we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to step in if we see them not sure or making a wrong move. They don't have to listen to us, but it is our responsibility to tell them. And that's how I looked at it. And I know that's a unique thing, but I believe that if we as voters demand this of our elected officials and we ask them, who's next? Who is next? If something should happen to you, Mr. Patrick, who's next? If something should happen to you, Roslyn, who's next? Which is the question I ask myself. Who's next, Anika? Who's next?
My goodness, Anika, those pearls are resonating with me. And as someone who co-founded an organization in New Jersey, the Jamaica Organization of New Jersey, a 29-year-old entity, I've seen the challenges in so many of our civic and social organizations in terms of succession planning and mentorship that you mentioned about. You talk about mentoring, preparing the landscape for future leaders. And it is difficult for us, even in our own communities, to do it on a local level, much less to take it on a political stage, where there's so much apprehension and fear of what we consider the unknown, and so, I mean, do you see a pipeline in the community? Do you see a pipeline now? Are folks doing it like you did it? Are you unique in that way?
I'm unique in that way. I am, and I'm unique in that way. I've heard people say that I was their succession plan. I actually saw it in a book. I read a book that said that, when they were asked about succession planning, they mentioned me, and I thought to myself, but you didn't help me, and you didn't give me a plan. I just clipped the little part in the book and saved it because I knew that wouldn't be me. Because I understand being third generation public servant. I understand that my grandaunt, Gwendolyn, made a succession plan because the Jamaican Nursing Association still exists, right? It's still there. It's still thriving. I understood that was my purpose. My grandmother's side, my mother's side of the family, my political affiliation, my cousin on my grandmother's side was, very involved in the political party. And guess what? The political party still exists. So succession planning has always been a part of our thing. But somehow there's a generation that my grandmother says is stagnating the water because the water must churn. So I think I'm unique, but the person that came in after me, the conversation is had. She is now looking for who would replace her. Not that she's leaving anytime soon, God willing, but she's looking because I've told her, you must look. We cannot leave our Caribbean American community without a voice. They may not understand what our purpose is sometimes. They may not get what we're doing sometimes. Sometimes they don't even remember our names, but we love them. And so we must plan for them. Same way we plan for our children, the same way we plan for our parents when they get older. We must plan. And so I sometimes use a little bit of whisper tactics and ask the elected officials that are in, who is next? I sometimes shame and I tell them that it's ridiculous that we have not come up with a plan. And I'm not the quiet meek mouse. I have lots to say and I say it. Because if I don't say it, then what happens? I go to my grave not explaining what they're supposed to do. They don't have to listen, but I'm going to tell them.
Your eyes. You brought a firebrand on board this week.
I sure did. I sure did. So it makes me wonder, when I think about your book title, Broken Branches, help us understand the ethos and the inspiration behind the title and the content of the book.
So I came up with it in 2022 and I left office when I realized that my legislature, I gave a speech on the Florida House floor in reference to redistricting. And the speech I gave was in reference to the fact that at the time, the governor of the state had told Florida what its map should look like. The legislature pushed back and said, no, we're going to give you your map, but we're also going to put our map just in case the Supreme Court says your map is illegal, right? So we proposed 2 maps and the Republican, I served on full redistricting. And, now redistricting is something that everybody understands because it's such a big thing with how the nation is running. So now we understand the state legislature does redistricting. I served on full redistricting for the Florida legislature. And I watched as my Democratic colleagues did not understand what the redistricting process was. Now I'm a little spoiled. Like I said, I'm not first generation in the Florida legislature. I'm second. So I watched my aunt go through redistricting 10 years prior. So I knew what I needed to look out for. I knew how I needed to navigate. And I would go and meet with the team that was redistricting the state every other day because I was not going to let them do what they felt like doing. But when I looked and asked how many of my colleagues in the Democratic caucus actually came to look at the redistricting maps, they only came to worry about their little area. They did not look at the rest of the state. They didn't look at areas for growth for the congressional seats. They didn't ask the questions I asked. And the reason I knew that is because everything is documented, right? And then the chairs who were Republicans would be like, well, you guys have all these complaints, but nobody ever came to meet with the team. And they actually said on the record, we saw Representative Omphroy, like every other day, she's in here looking at us like, what's this? What's that? What'd you do here? Why'd you do that? We're not supposed to speak about our particular district, but we can look at the rest of the state. And what I did was in my county is Broward County. It is, I would say 30% of the Black people in Broward County are from the Caribbean, of the Black people, right? So we have a very, very, very vibrant community here. The rest of us are first generation, right? So think of 50% of the Black people either being Caribbean born or Caribbean next generation, which is what I am, right? Mm-hmm. What we have in Broward County is we have 9 members on the county commission. And I know my ADHD will get with me, so you guys can drag me back whenever you need to. 9 members on the county commission. Out of the 9 members on the county commission, we finally have 3 Blacks, right? Wow. And we just got the 3 Blacks in 2024. We got our 3 Blacks, okay? I was like, woo, we've always supposed to have 3 Blacks. We're supposed to have 3 white people, 3 Hispanic people, and 3 Black people, because that's how diverse my county is. Well, our Blacks are 2 Black women. We have Hazley Rogers, who's my aunt, who has been in elected office consecutively for 30 years, Jamaican born. And then we have Alexandra Davis. She is British born, but of Jamaican heritage. There goes our 3. And then we have, I'm going to mess his name up, but I know him very well. He is Black American. But to show the point is, we got 3 and 2 of them are Caribbean. That's not by accident. But when we sit and we look at redistricting, I look at redistricting with how do I make sure that my community can influence, right? So we have Congressional District 20, which is considered a Caribbean district in Florida. It is one of our 2, we used to have 3 protected Black districts. Now we only have 2 protected Black districts. And the Congressional District 20 seat went from touch into far north into Broward, far south into Broward County, all the way into Palm Beach. So it covers 2 counties. I saw an opportunity to make sure that the Caribbean American population would be able to influence 3 congressional districts by removing 1 city, the city of Miramar, Florida. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about Miramar, Florida, but Miramar, Florida, I split them in 2. I had Miramar come to visit. They were confused as to why. They didn't know I was the one who did it, by the way. For some reason, no one realizes that the little black lady in the room was the one who maneuvered around these things. And that's quite fine. I don't mind. But Congressional District 20, I removed Miramar from it and then split Miramar in 2. Why did I do that? Miramar has over 100,000 people, which is a very large and has a very large Caribbean American base. I know that base will then be able to influence 2 congressional districts in the future. It may not have as much pull right now, but in the future it will. When I explained it to them, they were like, "Oh, you were thinking." I said, "Yes." I said, "It's my job. My job is to think about how my community can move forward." That information I then passed down to my colleague who is now serving in the Florida House. But another thing I did was
let me grab you right now. This story cannot stop. We got to get it going on the other side of the program. When we come back from commercial, we'll talk to you more. I am enthralled, and so I thank you so much. Anika Omphroy is on with us inside the Community Connection. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and continue onwards. Okay, glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I'll tell you about my Florida story when you come back.
I look forward to it.
All right. God, if you take us out and come on back, man. We're going to come.
Roadblock Radio, WCBS 101.1 FM. Time for us to take a break. In about 2 minutes or so, we'll be joining the panel again after the break. Stand by, 28 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're inside the Community Connection live here on Roadblock Radio with our host, Patrick Reed, and of course, Roslyn Smith, our co-host, and our guest, Anika Omphroy is here with us. We'll talk to her again after the break. Stand by.
So when you're riding through the ruts, don't
Wake up and live. The sound of Robert Nestor Marley, Hot on the Box on Roadblock Radio.
flee from hate, mischief and jealousy. Don't bury your thought, put your vision to reality. Yeah. All together now, wake up and live. Wake up and live. Wake up and wake up and live. Yeah. Wake up and wake up and live. Rise, ye mighty people. Yeah. There's work to be done, so let's do it a little by little. Rise from your sleepless slumber. Yes, 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 yes. We're more than sand and the seashore. We're more than numbers. All together now. Wake up and live.
1027 WMXJ HD3.
Turn it up. Roadblock Radio.
To normal, especially when you get fertilized.
I like the instrumental. I like the instrumental, Garfield.
I mean, there were things that people would go stop.
I like the instrumental, Garfield. It sounds good.
All this is going on, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or more, as you just laid out. You see that there's certain things people are going to end up stocking up on.
Absolutely. Fertilizer, everything.
I'm due for my visit down there in Florida. My mom is in Tamarack,
That's not including packaging or anything else. It's another $7 to $15 billion in costs. Now, here's the good news, Frederica. For a lot of your friends who love caviar, don't worry. Only about 1% of our caviar.
WMXJ 1027 FM HD3 Roadblock. Woo!
Wake up and live your. Wake up and live. Wake up and live now. Wake up and live. Bring that sound.
1027 WMXJ HD3 Roadblock FM.
It's Roadblock Radio, WCBS 101.1 FM HD3, covering New York, New Jersey, and its environs. We're also on WMXJ 102.7, covering South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miramar, Miami, all those places. And then we are on WCMX 93.7, Hartford, Connecticut. Let me say a pleasant good afternoon to the folks down there in Danbury, Connecticut, locked on to Roadblock Radio, Hartford. A pleasant good afternoon to you. Right now we're inside the Community Connection, live here on Roadblock Radio. And of course we have our host, Patrick Reed. Co-host, we have Roslyn. And of course we have our guest here. Of course we're going to rejoin the conversation. So let me point it back to Patrick Reed on the Community Connection, live on Roadblock Radio.
Well, thank you very much, Garfield, the pool one. Listen, man, I like saying that, Garfield.
So they say. So they say.
Listen, man, I know Anika Omphroy is real Jamaican, because when you were playing the instrument, I saw the head movements, I saw the head movements.
100%.
Anytime a Jamaicans in the room and some reggae type music playing, boy, you cannot help but notice the head movement.
I'm going to let you know.
Roslyn does the same thing. Huh?
If you play soca, it's the same thing.
There you go, man. I'm enjoying the conversation with you inside of Community Connection because it resonates so much. And Roslyn probably can identify with this. You know, we are community conscious folks. We understand the import of having our contribution, making our contribution to the community. And it's something that we grew up with. You know, oftentimes when we come, we're struggling with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs, and we never get to do what is in our heart. And that's to help build our community from strength to strength. And glad that you had the genetics, really, in your family. You know, the heritage that planted that seed early and said, hey, you got to work hard to make it in America, but you also have to find some time to give back to the community. And you have done so in so much ways. And we're glad to speak with you. I was going to tell you, you were talking before, and I said, before I interrupted you, I said, listen, I have Florida roots myself. You know, I've been watching Miramar for a long time. Miramar is a unique community. Caribbean folks are really thriving politically in Miramar. You know, I was hearing someone say, oh, is the mayor now a Caribbean mayor and members of the city council?
You have the mayor is first generation American, Jamaican parents.
Mm-hmm.
You have newly elected people to the commission also, but you have basically a Caribbean American commission. You have and I know everybody's name, and it's really, I hate when I mess this stuff up, but you also have a Panamanian American who's of Caribbean heritage to begin with. We all know we went over to build the Panama Canal, as many of our forefathers did. Yeah, a whole lot.
I'm going there actually in a week and a half, so I'll meet some of them.
So Miramar is a unique situation. It started off as an all-white, commission. And the first Black person to get elected was Fitzroy Salesman. He was Jamaican American. And let me just tell you, when you're the first, you get a fight. And he did get a fight. And the stories will tell you, all kinds of things. But the truth of the fact of the matter is, when you look at some of our forefathers, the ones that came forward first, they give you this, you start off with a horrible history, right? Nobody really liked Martin Luther King or Malcolm X during their time. They gave them a fight. And I look at Fitzroy Salesman in a similar way. I think we have to give our leaders grace. They are human. But he was the intricate part that broke open the doors for why you see what you see now. And he was a thinker. And the reason I can say that is because I watched him do it. My aunt was the first. So she held other people's hands, right? And I remember sitting down and listening to them map out and plot out how they were going to change the city attorney, how they were going to change the city manager, how they were going to get more Black people on the firefighters. I watched them do it. So I tell people all the time, the reason I'm able to chop real quickly through things is because I watched it firsthand as a young person.
My mom's telling me stories. I don't do my Florida story, Roslyn. My mom's telling me stories about it because she lives in Tamarack, of course, in Florida.
Oh, yeah. I represented a portion of Tamarack.
There you go. All right. Go for it, Roslyn.
No, I was just thinking, because when I listened to Anika, right, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Patrick, because you're in Jersey, right, and I'm in New York, and we run in various Caribbean American spaces where some of us are policymakers, some of us are consultants, or just otherwise civically engaged or trying to be informed citizens. And I'm curious, what, if any, connective tissue is there by way of some organization that's bringing us all together? Like when I listen to Anika, I hear familiar stories, just different geography. So how do we all come together and share and exchange? Because I think there's so much that could be learned, unifying across geographies.
The only group that I've seen do that correctly is our Haitian American counterparts. I have Haitian heritage also, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But they're the only ones I see come together every year nationally in different spaces to have conversation. I do not see that within the English speaking Caribbean. I do not see it within the Jamaican community, which is, what I'm born and bred into, right? I don't see it. And the interesting part about that is similar to how we navigate through sports. We have a tendency to run our races and run our races well. But like the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to build something, you got to go with others. We are missing that. We are missing that. And sometimes we're missing it because what I watched with my aunt was she wanted to be inclusive in her building, right? And so she would do things like, okay, we have to have a this and we have to have a that and we have to have a this and we have to have a that. And I got mad at her one day and told her, we don't need all of that. We need who show up. Who show up, we work with who show up, and then we move forward. We don't need to pull, we don't need one from Westmoreland and one from Montego Bay and whoever shows up, we work with the ones that show up, and then the others will follow. We can't waste any time. But no, Patrick, we do not have an interconnecting scenario like that. The closest thing we have as Black people, not Caribbean people, as Black people, is the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. And I served on the national committee when I was in office. I served on that. But we do not. But I look forward to us having a conversation about how we do that. And what we're lacking in Florida, I'm just going to say, if we have any policymakers who are looking to move to the South Florida region or to Florida, we need you, because we don't have any Caribbean lobbyists. We don't have them. The one we do have, she's about to navigate out. And so one of the things, the conversation we're having now is, that I'm having with the rep now is, we're going to have to make some Caribbean policymakers. We're going to have to start making them. So we're starting to look at who we're going to make policymakers. My aunt did it in her time, and that's why we have the current one we have now. But we've grown. The Florida legislature has 31 Caribbean American people in it.
Wow.
Now, they're not all from the English-speaking Caribbean, but there's 31 of us. And we do come together every Caribbean Day. We pass a resolution for Caribbean American Heritage Month, which my aunt carried first. I carried, and then now Representative Dunkley carries. So we have that, and we come together for that, and we walk through party lines on that. For culture, we show up. But now we need to actually get ourselves in line. That's one of the things that I'm working on, and that's one of the themes of the book, Broken Branches, because we come here, and we kind of break off a branch to come here and plant in this soil. But then I'm also talking about the legislature and how when the legislature doesn't work, things get broken, and then you have an overreach of the executive branch, which could be the governor or the president, and a pressure on the judiciary to fix what the legislature and the executive branch have messed up. So that's how it works for me. Broken branches. It's a Jay-Z said double entendre, but it's not a double entendre. I'm not an English major. I was an English lit major, but we'll talk about that another day. But so I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But no, we don't have one. But do you guys have one up there? Because we need to come together.
Well, it's interesting. The origin story of me and Patrick actually was during Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign when I did organizing under the heading Caribbean Diaspora for Kamala Harris. And so that was transformational, at least in East Coast, Northeast corridor. We did have a Councilwoman Andreu from Plantation, Florida, that was a part of that forum. And I think we had some other, Florida-based operatives that would engage with us. But, that was a candidacy in a time where a lot of Caribbean American people came to the forefront and started organizing. And I know there was also another group out of DC called Caribbean Americans for Kamala Harris, and they did a tremendous job organizing. So I think more of us are in touch now, such that the potential to formalize some form of an organization to keep that momentum going is there. And I think the appetite is there, and we already know the need is there, right? But it's funny when I think to our first guest for this afternoon and talking about narratives and egos and those things. I think for us, we just have to be willing to come together at this point of time and recognize there's room for everyone to lead in a specific capacity, especially if we're looking at building some sort of national or international organization for that matter. And and letting go of some of those, entrenched hierarchies that maybe we bring from our various, geographies. So,
I agree. I'll go ahead, Patrick. Sorry, because I'm really, you guys have no idea. I'm going to start to sewing things together. So expect a phone call.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
That's it. Roslyn is your girl. Roslyn is your girl. I tell you that. But let me just say this though. You know what I've learned over the years in Caribbean communities, and I'm as prolific in the Jamaican community as I am in the Guyanese and the Haitian community and the Trinidadian community in Jersey. I try to touch base through various activities here. I learned that we are so insular as a community. Mm-hmm. We are very insular. We don't, we don't like to. We stay by ourselves. A lot. Even within the Caribbean community itself, we're kind of compartmentalized. We are learning through some of the challenges we have that we must reach out. We have to reach out. Disasters hit Jamaica, it hit Haiti, Guyana, Trinidad, wherever. And so if we don't reach out, how can we address those issues? Disaster that's happening right now in the Caribbean community is this whole immigration disaster. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how it's playing out down there in Florida, which is such a big concentrated Caribbean community. It is a disaster in the making. And we as Caribbean Americans have to know how to navigate that through not only political process, but community engagement process. Otherwise we get stranded out there and we are at the mercy of those who are controlling the narrative.
So here, it's interesting because Florida's a very interesting scenario. Because we're in a red state, no one's coming in here and invading like they're doing in other states that are blue states. Because the political pressures for everything is really surrounded by going in and harassing the blue Democratic states. And so in Florida, we haven't seen these big, huge raids, and there's no campaign to come in down to Broward County to come get. They know where we are, It's not like they don't know where we are. They know where we are. And I don't know. I can tell you that what we've done is started to really push hard to make sure people get their citizenship. Because, back in the days, you have a green card, you're good. You don't have to worry. I never heard until recently where there's worry about green card holders being subjected to what they're being subjected to. We've seen American citizens being taken away or arrested and then released weeks later, as if they were American citizens, like they don't know where we are or who we are. I don't see the same trauma taking place here, but I have had the conversations about how we're preparing for the trauma. So I can tell you within our community, it has been more of a church type of a situation where we're having conversations on a church level to prepare that way. But we do know that churches are not all where we are, but we do know that is one of the things that are interconnected, that are stay as a staple within our community for the most part. So it's been a quiet Harriet Tubman church conversation is what has been taking place and has been being navigated through. And I think I'm outing everybody now. They probably might kick me out of the Tubman Club. But that is the route that has been taken. And I don't play a role in that route. I just listen when conversations start or they ask about something. I put my 2 cents in. But no, we're not prepared for a full-on fight. And I wish we would come together like we come together during Carnival. We come together during Carnival just fine. We drove into Nottingham in England. We drove into Carabana. We know how to do it that time. We seem to know how to put up a flag and dance at the same rhythm when it comes to that. And we just need to just transfer it to that. We do know how to come together. We do know how to, I think they're going to see a shift though, Patrick, because the Caribbean now has to figure out how to navigate through what America is doing at this time. I think you're going to see more of us coming together as the Caribbean leaders are coming together. I think that we are past due for that. With Kamala Harris' run for president and her run when she was running for president the first time, we need to make sure that what we do is we disband these organizations when there's not a race. These organizations need to stay in place 24/7, 365, no matter what. And these organizations need to ground under 5 concepts. We don't need 10 million concepts. We need 5. And the 5 that we need are probably going to look the same as the 5 for the Jewish community, the 5 for the Hispanic community. It's going to be the same 5. Yeah. But we have made our way in a short period of time to the top of levels. We've had our Colin Powell, we have our Susan Rice, we have our Kamala Harris. We've had major factors in specific positions what I've noticed is a lot of times in putting them into those positions, or as they go into those positions, their Caribbeanness gets muted. And we as a community get very, very, very upset when we get muted. We feel as if we're not seen or heard, and you are a product of us. How are we not acknowledged? You know, we felt as if Kamala's Indian side got highlighted more than her Caribbean side in a lot of factors. I heard that a lot. Me personally, I was just too excited she was there. I was too excited to speak about her. I spoke about her every time I could get a chance. I did an Associated Press article where I talked about her. She came into town and she actually stopped by the restaurant. She had food delivered from that restaurant to her plane before she left from Broward County when she came to Broward as the vice presidential candidate. So I know someone heard the article because I did the article at that restaurant on purpose because I wanted her to know that we were here. I wanted her to know that we've supported her. And I wanted her to know that, you know, don't worry, we're here and we're pushing, right? But we should never disband our organizations. When I look at who we should mimic ourselves after, as far as organizing all the time, I do not agree with every stance, but our Jewish American population that is probably around the same size as the Caribbean American population in the United States, I believe they stand at 2%. But they wield such immense power. I'm not saying we need to wield power in the way they wield power, but we have the ability to wield power, and we have shown that we can do so. So I look forward to making the connecting of the dots because we have become great business people. We have built families here. We're not leaving or going anywhere anytime soon. So we have no choice but to make sure we build our political power to the strengths where we're not begging people. I'm tired of begging people for campaign dollars to support our candidates. I'm tired of trying to figure out who we need to beg on the other side. Somebody asked me the other day, why is the Jewish American population so powerful? And I told them it's two things. It's built into their culture. They know that they must save money for political campaigns, and they set aside money for political campaigns. They have a stock of money every year set aside to support candidates that they like. How many of us have a stock of money set aside to support candidates we like?
Oh, goodness, man. How many of us even get involved, you know?
that part too. So they not only host things at their house for candidates they like, they then introduce those candidates to other people. They then support those candidates with their money. Then they go out and they promote those candidates. Now we have the come to the house and meet the candidate part down pat. We will walk and give out flyers down pat. We're missing the funding. We should all be putting aside $100 for a candidate we like at minimum every year. Now, if you don't see any candidates you like, you don't give your $100 away and you have it for the next year. But if you keep doing that, we will build a stockpile that will be able to support Kamala Harris when she runs in the next election, because I think she's going to run for president again. So we need to be prepared. We should already be stacking our cash. We have a tendency to think that our elected officials get paid a lot of money. In Florida, your state representatives get paid $28,000. You know, we're not a year-round legislature.
Yeah. We always have it wrong when it comes to money and politicians, you know, at the local level, across the board. You know, I tell people all the time that the local politicians in most cities, most townships in the United States is a volunteer.
Yes.
You know, they don't get paid. But you know, when we come from certain places, we come, our politicians are thief and them do this and them do that. And they're broke. You know, they're trying to make sure the community is good. The parks are good. The schools are good. The roads are good. They're volunteering, folks.
They don't.
What do you say the next? Yeah, take that on as well as your maybe not admonition, but encouragement to the next generation of Caribbean Americans.
The next generation, it's not an age thing. The next generation for me is anyone who knows there's an issue that needs to be fixed and they have the ability to push it forward. So my thing is a lot of times we think that you need to be an attorney, or you need to be an accountant, or you need to be something with a significant title. One of the things that I watched in the Florida legislature was I had colleagues who had formed a GED caucus. They did not graduate from high school. They got GEDs. Now, these men are multimillionaires and extremely successful, right? However, they don't have PhDs. They don't have JDs. They had GEDs. And so we need to stop making, let me just say this again. My friend told me this the other day. Stop telling everybody they can run for office. No, everybody's not supposed to run for office. If you don't have a care for a community and if you don't want to see people be able to be secure and move forward, don't run. I don't want you running because you want a title. I want you running because you care about people and there's an issue that you want to solve and you have a plan for us. If you don't have a plan for us, don't run. But that aside, running for office takes community. So you need to be out in your community, talking to people, shaking hands, having conversations, and listening. You must listen to what's going on so that you can then help and serve. Then you need to come up with a plan once you've gone through your listening tour. Then you need to find the people in the community who can fund your campaign or who can walk for you. And that is the biggest barrier of entry for all of us is the funding. You have to fight sometimes the people who actually have the community who already has the bankroll set to the side. So I guess what I'm trying to say is being elected to office or running for office is not an easy task, but we should all take it on and give a 2 years or 4 years to move our community forward. And sometimes we need I need the policymakers just as much as I need the elected officials and the strategists and the funders. Thank you so very much for giving me an opportunity to have this conversation today.
Absolutely. This won't be the last time that you're on. And I can say as someone who is a consultant, it does cost money to run for office, the ad campaigns, all the print, the mailings, it all adds up. So I agree with you. But really quickly, because we have to go, let us know, how can we stay in touch with you? How can people find you online?
Well, online, I'm at Rep Omphroy. That's Rep Omphroy, and that's on Twitter, X. I don't really use it that much, but on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook. I am not as politically inclined right now, but you'll see more information as I gear up to make sure that people understand how the different levels of government work. So that's one of my big things that I've been working on is the explanation of how government works. Awesome. Because if not, we don't know what we're navigating through. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Take us out.
Well, I want to thank you, Anika Omphroy from Florida, great representative from Florida, and your body of work is so expansive. I truly appreciate you, and we all appreciate your representation, excellent representation in the legislature and for our communities. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to have you back shortly as well. Thank you very much. Blessings.
Thank you. Blessings.
Yes, man. Roslyn, Mr. Linville James, candidate for office in the city of Orange, just called me. He's listening, and we're going to have him on soon. I'm about to join them. The election is on and running in Orange, and we've got 3 Caribbean American candidates over there. So her story is resonating across the country. Garfield, that's it for us, man. We'll come back next week. We'll go and come inside the Community Connection. Blessings.
All right. Thank you much. Roadblock Radio, we're out. We're taking a break. Fenton Troy is up next with the Vintage Showcase. With that, we are out of here.